When was the last time you cried or shared openly the struggles that you are going through? There was a time in my life where I couldn't cry. That even if I was in a situation that was comfortable for me as a man to cry, the tears wouldn't come. And I know that there are many men who are in this situation now, either consciously or unconsciously, where they are unwilling or unable to shed a tear. For me, it started when I was in my teenage years. During that period, my mother and stepfather would physically, verbally, and emotionally abuse me. And every time I had one of these episodes, I would break down and cry. Until it came to a point where I decided that I was no longer going to give them the pleasure of seeing me cry, of seeing me weak. And I decided that I was no longer going to cry. Thereafter, every time I experienced an abusive episode, I would stand firm and I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't show what I believe was weakness. But this didn't stay there. It carried on into adulthood. Then I became a soldier and a leader. So even more now, I couldn't cry because I believe that as a soldier and a leader of soldiers, I had to stand firm. I had to be strong. I couldn't shed tears because it would make me appear weak. And who wants to appear weak in a ultra testosterone driven environment such as the military? And even worse if you are a leader. And for years, I didn't shed a tear, or I didn't even believe that I was capable of crying, even though there were many occasions where I felt that tear burning my eyes, but it just wouldn't come. I would want to cry, but yet still, it felt as if it refused to come to the surface. But that was so until one day, a friend called me and he asked me to do something for him. But I was on duty and I told him I was coming off 48 hours later. On the day that I was to come off duty, I received a call that my friend was shot and killed that same day. When I attended his funeral, I sat and then one tear came. And it was as if a river that was blocked and barricaded for so long got an opportunity, that there was this crack in this barrier. And that water, that tears that had been built up for so long, found that space and came gushing through. And brother, believe me when I tell you, I cried and I cried and I cried. I don't believe that I cried as much for him as I cried for myself. And that moment taught me something very important. That when you keep emotions locked inside, suppressed, it is going to find a way eventually to break free. And it may show up unexpectedly. And when it does, I may not be able to control it. And that taught me a valuable lesson about the ability to express my emotions. Now, my question for you is, what are your thoughts on vulnerability? Do you think that as a man, being vulnerable is a sign of weakness, or is it a source of strength? As men, we don't often talk about the things that we carry inside, the the pressure to perform, to always be strong, and to hold whatever pain that we are feeling, to keep it locked inside. Because we believe that if we were to express that we are in pain, it would be taken as a sign of weakness. And we don't want to appear weak before other men or in society in general. So we feel that keeping it locked in is strength. But here's the truth: real strength isn't keeping your emotions locked in. Real strength is knowing when to let go, when to be vulnerable. I believe that vulnerability in a man is his superpower. And I know that that isn't something that is generally accepted by society. Because from boyhood, we were taught that crying is not something that boys do. And as a result of that, we become men who are unable or incapable of truly experiencing and expressing the emotions that we feel. So we move around and we carry hurt, anger, guilt, disappointment locked inside of us, because we don't want others to see that side of us, because it's going to make us appear weak. But by keeping those aspects of us locked in can be dangerous, and it often results or could result in violence. And if it doesn't, then we can be affected by it emotionally and mentally, and because it can lead to many mental diseases, depression, anxiety, even suicidal ideation. And that is why it is so important and critical that we learn to be vulnerable as men. That even though we weren't taught this in our childhood when we were boys growing up, that as men, we learn to develop that vulnerable side of us. Because in being vulnerable, we are able to release the pressures and the load that we may have been carrying for years. And that load often weighs us down. It is as if we are carrying the world on our shoulder. And it can truly affect us negatively. It affects how we show up. Because by doing that, by hiding from our emotions and our experiences and the things that has affected us, we are blocking an essential part of who we are as men. And when we do that, it prevents us from being real, from being authentic, from showing up as who we truly are. And that is why I think that as men, we need to learn, unlearn, and relearn what it means to be vulnerable. That vulnerability isn't weakness. Being vulnerable is strength in action. But it doesn't stop there. When you're able to be vulnerable, you give others the opportunity to share their vulnerability. Because think of it, we sometimes believe that whatever we have experienced, that it is so personal that other persons haven't experienced it. And we think that we are in a world by ourselves. But if we were to share our stories, we would see how similar we are with other men. And because we are willing to show our scars that we would have experienced and endured, it may be that point where someone who is currently experiencing that traumatic situation, or where their wound is still open and bleeding, it can become that medication that will help to close and cure that wound. So when we are open as men and able to share our mistakes, able to share the guilt and the shame and the things that we believe are parts that makes us weak, when we are able to share that, it makes other men comfortable to be able to speak and to share their struggles, to share their pain. And by doing that, they have now the opportunity to release the load that they too have been carrying. So in you as a man being vulnerable, it is beneficial for you to put down that load, to release that load that has been strangling you, that has been on your neck for however long. Maybe it has been years. And in doing so, you free others. You help to liberate others, because now it makes other men comfortable to shed their weight, to share their experiences, to share their stories. And in essence, you can create a ripple effect just by being vulnerable. So here is my challenge to you. Find an area in your life where you have hidden away from for so long, and share it with a mentor, with a brother, with a friend. It doesn't have to be on social media. It doesn't have to be a large audience, but begin to share your stories. Begin to share your experiences, the times where you believe that you failed, the times where you felt guilty or you felt ashamed. It doesn't mean that you have to go into details, but take that step. Take that first step to share what is on your chest, what has been holding you down for so long. And you will see the value that you can gain from it, and the impact and the influence that you can have on the lives of others who are also enduring similar or even much more difficult circumstances in their lives. And that is my challenge to you as a man. Be that man for you and for other men. Let's start this process. Let us make it comfortable. Let us make it normal for men to embrace that vulnerable side of themselves, to be able to express the pain and not keep it locked in and think that if they express it, that it is a sign of weakness. But to know that there is strength in being vulnerable as a man. Let me know in the comment section, do you think that being vulnerable as a man is a sign of weakness, or do you see it as a source of strength? If you find this content valuable, then check out this next video here, and I will see you in the next one. Peace, brother.